Well, apparently I sound louder than you, so
Well, we turn me up.
turn me up.
Turn me up. I'm not always turned on, but sometimes we just
Jesus,
turned up
too much, too much.
5 times today. 5 times I masturbated today. Insatiable. You know what? That's sometimes why people cheat, which is what we're talking about today. Because they have an insatiable thirst.
I haven't even
I'm
introduced it.
just saying, it's a good time to start.
But piggyback off that real quick, the whole coming sensation. Like, what when you think five, okay? What are you thinking in your head? Like is that a number you strive for,
No,
or is it a case to case basis? Because you're definitely doing it daily. Like sometimes I'm getting exhausted for you.
because I come so much.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is my workspace, and like we're not even close to the same volume.
I'm just horny. It's however much needs to tame the horn for that moment.
And what would you say the most is in a day?
It's 5 is a lot.
That is it. So how do you even find time for that?
I mean, well, if I'm by myself, 5 is a lot. With someone else, it can be many more.
So when the days that you hit five versus the days that are like one or two, what do you think is the deciding factor on that? Like what changes in your mood that you need five that day that you
It's
could
n
just do two?
it's not about my mood. It's like if I walk away and then I'm like doing something and I'm like my vagina's like talking to me, then I gotta hit another.
Definitely can't relate to that. But that's also called self-control.
I am horny and I don't have children, and why not? If I could make myself come when I want to come, I'm gonna come. I hate leaving, but I love coming, baby.
Anyways, welcome back to the Tell No Lies podcast. I am your host, Devin Physique, and we are here with the lovely Dr. Ashley Contorno.
I am a legitimate doctor.
You are, I know, but it's, like you got to spice it up. And I think the whole just Dr. Ashley Contorno, like it's
I
just,
think you're just jealous,
no, I mean, I can't even do that.
I guess.
So, like, I can't do that. That's not, it's not the same.
Okay,
So I got to take advantage of the opportunity.
sure.
Hey, so anyways, you were saying at the very beginning of how just jumping out the gates because you were so excited about today.
Well, I was just saying, like, sometimes people are so sensationally horny and they're not getting their needs met, so they cheat. But we're talking about cheating today, y'all. Sometimes why it happens, sometimes why it doesn't happen. You don't know it's happening, but it happens. Devin has some experience with cheating. I have some experience with cheating. And we're going to just kind of talk about first why we think people cheat. And then we're going to go into some of our own personal stories, being cheated on, cheating, whatever it may be. And I want to ask you first, why do you think people cheat? You've been there.
Why do you think people cheat? Um, we discussed like I looked at some things analytically wise, and I think the main thing is communication, right? I mean, it is as simple as that. And I think when I think about cheating and the dynamics and how so many people do it, I'm like, it could be easily avoided by the simple communication. And so I think we get caught up in whether it's a sexual desire we have for somebody, maybe the current relationship you're in is not fulfilling the same way, the spark's gone per
Yeah.
se, or it's comfortable. I mean, some people like yourself, you said you come five times. Okay. So if you were with somebody, how many times would validate satisfaction for you with your partner if there was a bare minimum?
I would say that what I want for myself and what I want with a partner are two different things
I agree.
because my drive is so high. Like even when I was married with Steven before my father went and died on me, sometimes we would go weeks without sex, like depending on his level of how he was feeling with bodybuilding, because that tanks your sex
Correct.
drive. A lot of people think you get on PEDs and you're just horny 24/7. Well, it can do the opposite, especially when you're dieting. So at least every day. Like it's rare. Out of a week, maybe there's one day I don't masturbate.
Okay, so the relationship would be dependent on person to person,
Yeah.
knowing that your level is extremely high and someone's probably not going to meet that.
Yeah. So I just make sure my needs are met. I would love to have sex in a relationship every day,
Uh-huh.
but I know that that's not feasible to people always can't match emotionally or physically, or if you're having a stress day and you just don't want to have sex because it's a physical act, right?
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't want to be fucking every day. Like,
And I think obviously the whole taking steroids, the bodybuilding, that's a whole nother ball game when it comes to sex.
yeah,
That changes. You're not just dating a normal person.
yeah,
And I think throughout my years, like if it didn't stay hard long enough,
yeah,
like, or you couldn't get off or whatever, the first thing a girl's thinking is like, what is it me?
yeah.
And I think that's a natural feeling to have is those things, but you have to like explain and understand. So you're pretty much saying that even though my sex drive is high, if I met somebody, as long as everything else was where it needed to be, you would make that adjustment.
If I was dating someone now at this point in my life and we weren't having sex at least once a week, I would have an issue with it.
And
And
you would just bring it up.
yeah, I would say like this like I want to know what the issue is or why we can't have sex this much because I have needs. Like I try to have sex once a week right now. You know what I'm
Okay,
saying?
so if you're in a relationship that was similar to us asking why people cheat, instead we're having this discussion
Right.
maturely back and forth, like it's easy because it is, but only when you get to a space where you can be true and authentically yourself
Right.
do these conversations start to happen. But prior to them, if I have this idea in my head that that's how I'm fulfilling unfulfilled by nature for whatever reason, we just go do it.
Right.
I don't know from the female perspective, from the male one, it's just go do it.
Well, I think that okay, so, like, you have this desire or this need that's not being fulfilled, and you're not communicating your needs, so you're starting to feel contentious about it or feel some type of way, but then, opportunity presents itself. So it's like if that opportunity is like this little dangling carrot, some chick is in your DMs, some dude is in your DMs, how easy is it? It's like, "This person wants to have sex with me. So, I'm not getting what I need here. I'm gonna come over here and just get what I need." That's not what you should be doing, but I think a lot of people are just like, this is easier than having this talk with my partner that we might fight, we might break up, it might lead to something bigger that's a bigger issue in our relationship. I'm just gonna go get my needs met. And I think people aren't honest with themselves about their own needs. Like, well, why am I feeling this way? Why do I feel like this opportunity is so easy for me to get when I have this partner that's here?
Mhm.
You know?
And I mean, that's just one variable, right? There could be someone that is just one of those people that has those random urges. I mean, as a male, your testosterone is speaks for itself.
Yeah.
I think there was this study where a girl said she took an extra amount of tests for a whole week and she had a different perspective on men, right? And
Yeah.
so a lot of it too, like you have the easiness of a girl going into your DM and sparking that interest. But if even if there's, maybe you're in a relationship where you have kids now, and so you're just staying for the long haul, so you're just doing all the bad things outside of it. So I feel like it just comes down to communication, right? On any aspect of the cheating.
Right, well, you feel like you can't leave, you're trapped, like you said, you're married, you have kids, you can't afford to get a divorce, you have nowhere to go. Maybe you're, a single mom, you don't wanna be a single mom, and you're like, "I'm not gonna put myself in the situation, so maybe I'll stay with a man that's cheating on me because I can't leave this scenario."
Or they don't want to be alone.
Right.
I think that's a big thing too, right? I mean, just people getting in relationships, period. A lot of people get in them because they don't want to be alone. They'll sacrifice boundaries for themselves that they've had high regards for because they simply don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
So I think all those intangibles, like, and again, leads back to the communicating aspect of things. Like, I just feel like that would alleviate a lot of the problems. We're having this conversation so freely about what would be the solution, but when you're in those moments and you haven't fully healed from whatever is preventing you from being that way, um, I think that's why it continues. And another thing too is like trauma. Can put you in positions where you act in a certain light. Maybe that's
Yeah.
the household you came from, so all you know is brokenness. So maybe if someone gets too close, you find ways to
Like, ruin it.
ruin it.
Yeah, yeah,
I think I gave this analogy like and more stem to the girls because of what I've experienced. But like when a girl is managing life through chaos, she only knows what that looks like. So when an opportunity presents itself that, let's say, is everything but chaos, it's unfamiliar. So it's scary. It's all the other things. Like, but when you see chaos, you're like, oh, I know how to facilitate through this. So I think a lot of people are also just in relationships that weren't meant to be, but they stuck longer for a loneliness, and then they do all the traumatic things and just blame others for their mistakes.
yeah. I also feel like today's day and age with social media, it's so easy,
Oh,
right?
yeah, it's so easy. And I
Like
think the girl I think I was talking to someone about this, but I feel like girls have it so much easier, right? Like at the end of the day, if you break up with someone right now, let's say me and you are in a relationship and you split up and you post one photo sexualizing yourself anyway, you're gonna get DMs.
I feel like that's a man's nature is to go towards a girl than the other way around,
And
right?
not to say that what your DMs are filled with are what you're wanting to
Right,
attract, but
right.
it is that easy. Right?
Yeah,
You said like it is hard in this generation with how like weak-minded people are with relationships and expectations. There's a lot of back and forth of, what people need just to be satisfied. And it's like, it's really ridiculous to begin with.
Yeah. I when I get a DM from a guy that so I don't get a ton of like horny DMs, surprisingly. But when I do, if I see like his profile picture is like him and his wife, him and his girlfriend, I will respond back and like like some guy like, oh my God, you're so fucking hot or whatever they say. I'm just like, yeah, do you want me to go tell your wife that you said that? Like I'm a bitch back.
Mhm.
Cause it's like, what do you think you're doing? And someone who's just completely complicit and okay with that sucks, A, like as a female to just go along with that. But B, like bro, like at least make a ghost account or something. Like try to hide it a little bit. You're literally tagged in a photo with your wife. I can just go screenshot this and send it to her. Like you care that little. Like there's some people who the thrill of doing it is more exciting or flirting. Like, okay, do you consider flirting cheating?
Um, to what degree? Yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say so. Again, in the female nature, it's even more enticing on the other side, like to receive from a male, like from a female like that. So I think girls have advantages in that way. But to me, like even as simple as like when it comes to Instagram, like if I'm in a serious relationship with somebody, what's the point of me just adding a bunch of random chicks for no reason? You know how I am when it comes to following people. Like
Yeah.
if I don't know you, haven't worked with you, we don't have a personal, I'm not just following people. So to me, like, if we started dating in my head, I wouldn't be adding all these girls. What's the point?
I don't know. I feel so ambivalent about that because like I know people who are like, once we're dating, you can't like a girl's post, you can't comment on a
Yeah,
girl's
I
post.
think that's excessive.
It's just like, but it's like, how where do you draw the line? Like, oh, I have to tell my girlfriend every time I follow a girl, tell her how I know her, what, why. Like, I want to be in a relationship where there's enough trust and vulnerability where I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, and that's the other thing too. But I think in this day and age, by you follow vice either way, it's still insinuating to someone, and you have to be strong enough as an individual. If you decided that that was the direction you were going, I would have to put my trust in you that that wasn't going to lead to something. But you don't think that that ad makes that person go, hmm.
I guess sometimes I think so naively about it. Like, there's this guy I've been flirting with for like a year, very, very gently flirting for like a year. And he's sometimes he's reciprocal, sometimes he's not. And I was like, what is this dude's issue? He likes every single one of my stories, every single one of my posts, DMs me very often. I just realized he had a girlfriend because he barely posts her. So he just posted her like in a story. And I went back and back and back and looked. And I was like, oh, they've been together since like 2021. He's only posted like two photos of her.
But maybe their relationship, she doesn't care.
No, because I'm assertive and forward. And like when I'm assertive and forward, he like backs off. He could have just said like, "Hey, I appreciate this, but I'm dating someone." But like, why are you entertaining me even
Does he
messaging me
want
that?
to see how long he can go until you say something maybe?
Gross. Gross.
I mean, I respect the openness, like, he don't give a fuck.
No,
You
but
know, like, he's
I
not even being
do.
sneaky about it.
I do.
But do you message their girls or no?
No, I don't, we haven't said anything that has crossed the line. But like if in the event I have been catfished by someone who was married before and I reached out to his wife and they got divorced because he catfished me gnarly and he had a history of doing it. He actually like dated one of my friends. It was like when I first started online dating after Steven died. It was like 8 months after Steven died, set up to go on a date with this guy. He wasn't even in the same state, but I did some detective work. I found out he was married with a kid and he had like 15 other relationships he was facilitating because I made a video, like a goob style video, calling him out and like showing the screenshots and showing like everything that he did leading up to our date that never happened. And all these women reach out to me like, "Oh, I fucked that guy. Oh, I dated that guy for a month, blah, blah, blah." Meanwhile, his wife is in another state with their kid and has no idea he's in the military. And it's just like that dude was like sick and got off on the emotional manipulation of cheating. So like there's all kinds of aspects. There's like physical needs, emotional manipulation or emotional satisfaction. And then there's just like I think people who just like the thrill of it, the excitement of it, right? And I've been cheated on every serious relationship I've had. I've been cheated on by all of them, except for Steven.
And that's why when it comes to a relationship, if you're not in a one where you both are actively growing and improving on your faults and what let's say traumatic things, like we're all dealt with trauma in life, right?
Yeah.
But it's still our responsibility to overcome it, right? Just because you had a shittier upbringing than me and your trauma is worse than me doesn't change the fact that you as an individual still have to go and put in the work to change that. And so I think a lot of people come into relationships broken still.
Yeah.
and you're bringing the baggage with the new one. There's so many people where it's like you meet them and they already have this wall up of like, you need to do X, Y, and Z. I don't gotta do shit.
Right.
Like I'm me. And if that's not enough, and I have to go do more for you to prove, I'm not here to prove anything to anyone. And I think a lot of girls get caught up in that and thinking like, oh, I got hurt by this person, so now you got to show me more.
Yeah, it's not your fault that someone else, bringing in someone else's wrongs to the next person.
Correct.
And there is a point where that trauma does hurt you and break you. And then there's a point where it just becomes an excuse for you to not heal.
Correct.
And that's not fair.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that blame everyone else but themselves for those things happening, and then you get that vicious cycle. I think that's where a lot of people are stuck.
Yeah.
Is in that, denial phase of it's everyone else. I'm going to blame me, right? I mean, we all have shitty things that happen to us,
Yeah.
right? I mean, everyone's completely different, but the same at the same way. And so I just feel like some people have a harder time overcoming those things and they just make excuses to validate it.
Yeah. I think one of the last kind of reasons why people cheat, which we talked about this earlier today at the gym, is like it's kind of like for no reason, more so than like I'm all right in my relationship, but like I want to test this grass over here. I just want to walk barefoot on this grass and then I want to come back to my own lawn. But not
But do you feel like do you feel that way or no?
no.
And I think that when it comes to male and female, I think we've had conversations, maybe disagreed in some aspects of things, but like we're just wired differently, right? And so females are more emotional based beings. So that's why I use the analogy when a female cheats, it's way worse than when a male does because she had to develop a connection with that chick or with that dude for it to validate continuing. Like you probably would agree with me, like the only way that you're gonna fuck this dude on the first date is if you vibed with him. If there was no connection, it's a no.
Yeah,
You're
for
not
sure.
gonna just do it to do it.
For sure.
Okay. So the vast difference with that is I can
You're
line up
good.
10 men and they'll all run it.
Yeah.
There won't be even a thought process. I think we've all been in those states. So I think that's the huge barrier when cheating is also
Yeah. Couple that with you're already in a relationship, you're already emotionally invested in someone else. I mean, statistically speaking, we should have looked it up what percentage of men versus women cheat. I bet it's like 80-20.
more men.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so because women cheat in a specific way, when a male does it to them, I would say the vast majority of women, their first thought is, he's trying to find better than me. Right?
Yeah, they think it's something they did wrong.
Correct.
Yeah, for sure. They internalize and they're like, "Oh my gosh, why did I let this man, do this to me?" I didn't feel that way when I was cheated on. I just felt like these dudes are pieces of shit. I guess I should just say what happened.
But yeah, real quick before you do that, but then there's also guys that you date where they aren't that high status of a man where like let's say they have more attractiveness and they're getting more women. So like it's even worse when those ones cheat.
What, like, because, like, they're out of your league or something?
They were under.
Oh,
A lot of girls settle, right? I
yeah,
would say more girls date under than over
yeah.
for whatever reason. Probably the same reason why I would take, someone that was not a 10 because usually their personality doesn't align.
Because you could change her.
Oh, you could then you could build her up.
We got an argument about this
You
earlier.
could build her up. But anyways, okay, let's chat about how like your experiences. So obviously you had several incidents.
I had several. So my first true love, his name was Chris. I did a long-term 2 guys named Chris. Uh, we bought a house together when I was 19. We moved in together and everything was going great for just a couple months. We were together for like 3 years. It was my high school sweetheart kind of guy. Um, we started to break up because he was addicted to porn. Like got a virus on my computer. This is 2009. Got a virus on my computer because he was looking up porn so
Was
much.
he a nerd?
No,
He wasn't nerdy?
no.
I feel like the guys that were, like, bullied or didn't really get anything, those were, like, the real porn addicts.
But he was addicted to a very specific type of porn. He so this is like communication and not letting his needs known. I want to backtrack real quick. When we were talking about communications and not letting your needs be known, I think a lot of people are afraid to discuss kinks.
Or needs. I mean, just in general,
Yeah.
just to discuss, like
I think like needs, like I have this drive, but like kinks, like I want you to lick your fucking feet. I want
okay,
to be
but
tied up and be a pretty
okay,
princess.
but what about this? Like, do you feel like when you first get into a relationship that that should be at the vocal point, or you think that that's something that happens as your relationship not gets stale, but as you get comfortable and like all the newness, you're trying to find different ways to bring excitement to the room or whatever? Or do you feel like out the gates, like most people know that that's what they're their interest is.
I feel like there's different versions of that. I think it's how comfortable you are with yourself. Like for me, when I enter into even speaking to a man, I let him know what my preferences and my kinks are. Because if they're not getting satisfied right away, I don't even want to be with you. Prior, actually didn't know those kinks really, and I wasn't really open to discussing them because I was a little bit more fearful and not as confident. I think spicing things up when they get stale is very different than I have this innate need and want and desire to be kicked in my balls that isn't something that stems from, like, I wanted something new.
Okay, so this one you're going to talk about, or you are talking about, how experienced in communication were you at that point of saying
Oh, I have
no,
no idea.
not yet? So
No,
so the whole kink conversation was something he had. Do you
I
feel like
think
he
he
had it at the
had
beginning, or he developed it through the relationship?
I think he always had this kink. It was like older women MILF kink because he started having an inappropriate relationship with his best friend's mom.
This is before you.
No, while we were dating. This is why we broke up.
Oh, okay, okay.
But this isn't why he cheated. This isn't him cheating, really. Well, this is lightweight cheating. So he would be like texting his best friend's mom all hours of the day, like it was toting the line of really inappropriate. Like contextually, you'd be like, "What are you doing? What are you saying to this woman?" And then he would be looking up MILF porn, granny porn, like older lady porn was his thing, right? So I was so excited. It was our first year in this house together. All I wanted to do was pass out candy on my porch on Halloween with my boyfriend in our new house. And we ended up breaking up like 2 days before Halloween. And I went and stayed with a friend because I had nowhere else to go at the time. I was only 19, and I came back on Halloween to get some stuff to bring to my friend's house because I kind of left hastily because there was just something that broke the camel's back. And I went out with a friend to do something, and I had him drop me off, my gay friend Kevin. Hi, Kevin. And I had him drop me off at the house, and I was like, "Oh, I'm just gonna grab some stuff." But really, I was trying to like smash and, rekindle. It was like that toxic 19-year-old love.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh, I'll Uber home," or whatever it was. I go in the front door and I see 2 pairs of shoes, and I was like, "There's a chick here." And it was like a little teeny foyer, and then it turned into the living room, and I look in the living room, and he's fucking cuddling on the couch with this chick all wrapped up, and they're watching a movie, and I lost it. Like, I have never gone psycho in my life. I went full on psycho, and she brought her little dog, and our bedroom was upstairs, and I went upstairs, and I start packing shit, and the dog came up there, and I am an animal lover, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, "If this fucking dog doesn't leave me alone, I'm gonna kick it." And I just went so psycho. And then the girl comes upstairs and she's like, "I had no idea. Oh my God." Fast forward, she ends up taking me home, and they were dating like behind my back. She was pregnant, and she went over there to talk to him about the baby and what she was
Wait,
gonna
where were you
do.
when all this happened?
I was there.
No, like when they were she was cheating, he was cheating, you were at
I
your
didn't He was
house?
doing it behind my back, but he had her over that night.
No, I'm saying where were you when she first came, like when she came over that night?
I was out doing something else, but I was already staying at a
Was
friend's
he
house.
expect oh, he wasn't expecting you to oh.
No. Yeah, so 2 days I'm out sleeping at my friend's house because we just kinda broke up, and we're figuring out what we're doing with our lives because we bought this house together, and he has some chick over that he has been sleeping with that he got pregnant, and
How long
she
had
ends
it
up
been
taking me
prior?
home. They had been seeing each other for, like, 4 or 5 months. We had only been living together for, like, 6 months.
Okay, was this a MILF? Or like
No, she
grandma?
was our age. They met, like, in
So
traffic.
where did the grandma tie come in?
So that was the initial reason why I started leaving because he was addicted to this porn. He messed up my laptop that I needed for school. He was inappropriately texting his best friend's mom. And then I was like, I need to separate myself from you. Like, this is too much. And then 2 days later, I come home on Halloween, the day we are supposed to have our cute little first Halloween, and he's here with that chick that he got pregnant. So that like broke me a lot, like hard. And then that was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Like we were over after that. And then I ended up moving back in the house, kicked him out. I bought him out of the house and then moved forward with my life. And then that like really started my hyper independence of like not being so reliant on a man that if we broke up, it was going to wreck my world, if that makes
So
sense.
what would you say, because this is one big thing for me growth wise, that I always ask myself in good or bad situations, like, but if you thought this, like, what did you think in that moment? Like, when you were when that was happening to you, like what did you say, like what's the lesson to be learned here? Did you did you figure out what that was?
I was
Like,
doing so much at the time. Like I was working full time. I was an undergraduate full time. I had the house. It was just like survival mode. It was like, how can I rely on myself and not get caught up where anyone else can rock my world?
Okay, so like, but what do you attribute to him cheating on you for? Like, was it what did it have to do with? Like, were you not home enough, and he already had these weird kinks, so he was experimenting what he can get away with?
I don't ever think that someone cheating on me is my fault. Like, ever. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
I don't think that there was something I could have done different or should have done different to make him not cheat on me. Those were issues that he had within himself. He obviously had an issue with MILF addiction that wasn't being explored properly when we fought about it and he, couldn't materialize what that was. And then him meeting this girl in traffic, pretending like he was single and then carrying on a relationship with her. I attributed probably he was young and dumb and horny and opportunity strikes because I was gone a lot, but that doesn't mean that I did anything wrong in my opinion.
Yeah, see, and I think he pushed the boundary even more because it wasn't just like a little, let me get off real quick.
Yeah,
I mean, he had her pregnant,
right.
so like he was almost building a double life. So I think that kind of cheating to take it to those lengths, there's levels to each of them. Like they're all the same, right? You still weren't able to sit yourself down, look in the mirror, and say, what do I need to be more transparent about? But they all still there's severities of it. Like that whole thing is like he's carrying on a second, third, like there's so much that comes into that. So where does that stem from?
I don't know. I think probably his home life and like he was raised in they didn't have the baby, by the way. He was raised in like a super Christian household with really, really strict rules. I mean, this was his first time like out of the house, you know what I mean, living with me. So I think he was just, doing this, having this fantasy land. He and his family, he has a sister that I was really close friends with while we were dating. We were the same age. He was 2 years older than me. She comes into play with my next story. My ex-husband, my first
So
husband.
this the first cheating was with just a regular boyfriend.
Yeah,
Wasn't any of the marriages we spoke about, the first one or Steven,
no,
obviously.
right. So I was married twice, to catch y'all up in case you're not sure.
Yeah, I know we did that other video where it seemed like you were getting divorced to
To
Steven.
Steven, yeah, it
It's
wasn't
2
clear.
separate ones.
Yeah, I
So
was
this first cheating was a not just a boyfriend that never escalated to anything more than that.
yeah, I was 19. We never got engaged or
And that was
anything like
that
that.
was the first one.
Yeah. So
Those are always hurt those are the ones hurt the worst.
yeah, it was my first love. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was very toxic. It was very like we
That's
broke up
and
all the time.
especially to be in that way, right? There's so many traumatic ways that things can end, but that's like, how do you over that's why I said, like, what did you learn from it of like, how do you take that lesson and say, okay, let me make sure that this doesn't happen again, but where I'm not putting it's hardening me,
Yeah.
and taking the next one, like you still want to be authentically you. And I think along the way when cheating happens, it takes less and less it takes from you, so you give less and less, right?
Yeah.
How do you keep that same persona going into the next one knowing that this just happened to you? Like, was this next one you're gonna talk about right after?
I actually dated one other guy for like a year. I mentioned in the beginning that all of my long-term relationship cheated on me. This guy didn't. He was like so obsessed with me. And I think it made me a little bit more comfortable, like having that relationship for like a year and a half. And I broke up with him at the end, just like kind of knowing like, okay, there are good guys out there. Like he was a great guy. We were just going in two different directions of life. He was like 10 years older than me, and he just wanted me to marry him and have his babies. And I was like, no, thank you.
Mhm.
But I did get a little bit more hyper independent where I was a little harder, I would say. And then my ex-husband, his name is Scott, but his last name was Pace, and everyone called him Pace. Like even I called him Pace. Um, so hi Scott, hi Pace. He uh he again, like he was a little bit, I thought, out of my league, but he wasn't for real. And he was a flirt. He was like the fucking player. He was the guy that no girl could get. So I was like, I'm gonna make this my mission. And I did. And I like won him. And it was such a weird kind of twisted thing that I was like so desperate for love that I just wanted this man to be with me no matter what. So I molded myself to kind of be what he wanted in the beginning of our relationship. And I feel like so many women do that and they lose themselves to try to make this man happy. And then eventually, when you break off and realize your own identity, you're kind of fucked because you're a mismatch for that relationship. Like I was just biting for this guy's attention for so long. And he proposed to me. I said yes. We got married. We had a house together. I was in grad school at the time. And our relationship sucked the entire time. It was just like, it was great the first year-ish when it was like that little honeymoon phase, but really it was just like me trying to be everything, the perfect girl for him. Like I just wanted to show him I could be the one. And then once I was like, fuck, I want to be myself. Like I just want this guy to love me for me. I want this guy to think I'm hot. I want this guy to want to be with me. And he just kind of could care less about me. And that was the mainstay of our relationship where he was just like, whatever you are, what you are, I like you're there. I was a piece of convenience. And we ended up breaking up after 9 months of being married together. I call it my pregnancy marriage because it only lasted for 9 months, even though there was no pregnancy involved. But this one, he never cheated on me while we were together per se, but when we broke up, again, we had a house together. I was 24. I moved out. I moved back home with my stepdad. And I came home a couple days later to grab some things, and he wasn't there with the girl, but there was condoms in the trash. It was like 3 days later.
They always give themselves up.
And when I approached him about the condoms in the trash, legitimately,
Were you still living by that rule back then with
what?
him? The
Oh,
condom thing?
ABC? No.
Oh no, because you're with him. You're married, right?
Yeah.
So like that's off the thing. Okay.
Yeah. So I accost him about these condoms. Like, what are you doing with condoms in the trash? I literally haven't even moved my stuff out yet. Like, because we weren't sure we were really ending. I was just like taking a break. And he told me that he was jerking off in the condoms so he wouldn't make a mess.
Man, that's an excuse for you.
I'm like, Pace, I have known you for 4 years. Not once have you ever jerked off in a condom.
But I feel like a lot of dudes when they break up like that, they utilize that small window
Oh, yeah. Boom.
right away.
Opportunity,
Yeah.
right? Just like you
Because
said.
you're not together and you're just saying in your head, oh, we're not together. But if you look at the principles, like, okay, so 2 days we weren't together, that shows you where your head's at.
Yeah. In our house, in our bed.
Yeah.
And
But you don't think about I don't think most males think of it like are thinking that when it's happening.
no,
You're selfishly doing what you need to please yourself. So you're acting upon that nature, not like, oh, how would this make the other person feel doing this in this space?
right. Well, I mean, at that point, like our relationship was so soured. It was like
Mm.
spoiled milk. Like it was just constantly nagging and arguing. Like I was just so unhappy and I was just trying to pull any fiber or thread to get this man to show me any attention or affection. Like I know he cheated the first moment he got because he was just like, I'm so sick of this bitch. Like, and that bitch was me. And
Okay, but how many times did he cheat on you that you knew?
I don't know if he ever cheated on me while we were together, but who he cheated on me with was my first boyfriend's sister. Isn't that a small world? And they have babies together now, and he cheats on her all of the time, verified. People like still tell me, like, oh yeah, I slept with your ex-husband, even though he's like with somebody else. Like someone told me that. And I was like, cool, I don't want to
Wait,
know.
so where were you? You were gone again, and you encountered it happening.
So I had like started to move out, but just packed a bag and
Oh, it
left.
was just the condom thing. So you didn't walk in on this one.
No, but down the road, him and her had babies together,
Obviously, yes.
and
So after the scenario where he told you the whole condom story, you obviously didn't buy it,
right, and so
and that was it.
right.
That like it was already going. You said it was already sour milk, so it was spoiled at that.
Yeah, I think when I left, even though like we hadn't figured things out, I knew in my mind that I didn't want to be with him. Like I want to be with someone who actually loves me. We were together for 4 years, and I can only remember one day where I truly felt loved by that man. One day in 4 years, and I should have never married him. I knew walking down the aisle, I didn't want to do it. So it's like I do blame myself a little bit, but that was a lesson that I had to learn. And I did take a lesson away from that one for sure. And it was, I'm never going to put myself in a situation, in an emotional situation that I don't want to be in. I'm going to choose partners that also choose me, that make me feel fulfilled, make me feel wanted, and make me feel present in my relationship, not someone that I'm pining and trying to pull something out of so that I can feel something, because really, truly, that's not love.
Now, throughout your time of being in relationships, you said you never cheated on anyone. Have you been in scenarios where you've felt even close?
Well, I guess you could say I like mildly cheated.
What's the mild each?
On my bachelorette party for that guy, Pace, that I married, I kissed someone when I was in Nashville for my bachelorette party. Chance Yardley. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it is what I mean.
Well, I was drunk, whatever. I mean, drinking, we didn't even put drinking lowering, your inhibitions for people cheating. That's a huge one because you make decisions you wouldn't normally make. Like, not that it's an excuse, but it happens.
Now, these relationships when it happened, were you in very monogamous ones?
Yes.
and there was never any outside discussion. These things just randomly happened.
I didn't even really know, like, what ethical
Would
non-monogamy
you say
was.
were you raised like very?
Traditional.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
But that's why I got married. It's because that's what you do, especially when I lived in Ohio. It's like you date someone for this many years, you get married, and then that's what leads to unhappiness because you're like forced into this societal norm that maybe you don't even want to be in that box, but you don't know that there's other boxes that exist,
Yeah.
you know?
And it sounds like you kind of went from relationship to
For sure.
relationship. So you didn't get to experience. And I think a lot of people are that way too. Goes back to the loneliness. Like we get in unnecessary relationships just for the sake of not wanting to be alone.
Yeah.
When realistically there was no dynamic that made that should continue.
Yeah.
Right.
I didn't know I didn't have a good example of what love was, like, through my parents' relationships, and I really didn't feel like my parents even supported me and showed me love in the way that I felt love, so I was constantly looking for it in my personal relationships. And then the last guy I dated before I met Steven, his name was Chris as well. I was, like, obsessed with him in, like, middle school, and then we rekindled right after I broke up with my husband. Like, it was, like, maybe, like, 2 weeks after. He was definitely, like, my rebound guy, but we stayed together for, like, a year and a half, and it was a great relationship throughout almost the whole thing. He had some sexual hangups, like, he had a pretty big lack of confidence, and that would translate over into some of our sexual endeavors where, like, it just sometimes there was some performance stuff or he just didn't feel confident enough to even have sex, and that was something I never encountered because 'cause I'm just like, "I'm mad as fuck. What the fuck?" You know? And so we were together for a year and a half, and he cheated on me while we were dating. Um, I was in grad school, so I got married and divorced while in grad school, and then I met this guy a couple weeks later, and my friends were really supportive. They were just like, "Whatever makes you happy," because they all saw how miserable I was in my marriage. I just wanted someone to love me so bad, and this guy like genuinely did.
But do you feel like that was the downside to you of like you have this hole inside of you that the guys that are going to take advantage of that are you're attracting?
For sure at the time, yeah, and
And that's kinda when I said that whole scenario, like, when you're used to chaos, like, you gravitate like, we always say, like, why can't we find our person? Like, like, why is everything always a struggle for that? Why is it a struggle? And why do we always attract the very opposite of the things that we stand for? Like, you wanna heal someone, right? Like, you said you made excuses for them over and over. Why? Because you held on to the little bit of good they showed you,
yeah,
and then you carried that for its merry way, but when does that stop?
when you discover your self-worth.
So that's why I'd asked you, like, could you have done things different in your relationship to prevent that? Maybe not what he's going to do, but maybe you could have shown up in different ways to not feel like he could disrespect you that way.
I would have never been in those relationships if I knew my worth at the time.
Yeah. So in those times, you were learning more about self respect and
Yeah.
what you wanted and all those types of things. Cause, you can go through life and never experience anything. You're 40 years old and you're as immature as a 20-year-old. So I always, say, like, I love the struggles because, especially when you struggle and then you learn from them.
Yeah, they're the best teachers.
Yeah, and some people they struggle and they go through hardships and they don't learn
Yeah.
and they blame, right? It's even more rewarding to like see the growth that comes from a bad outcome and you look at it and say everyone makes mistakes in life and how can I grow and be better?
The hook is having that moment where you do have the reflection to see how can I grow and be better? Because so many people just become perpetual victims of life.
Mhm.
And all these things just keep happening and happening. And at some point, you are your own worst enemy if you don't internalize, look in the mirror, and take those things and change from them.
Yeah, it's like when life knocks you down, it's because there's something down there you're supposed to find, and the bad things that keep happening in life, I feel like they just keep repeating itself until you've learned the lesson,
Yeah.
right? And that's something that I attributed to. I'm like, that's why I've always said to myself in my growth phase, like, what's the lesson to be learned here? Like when friendships end, it's easy for us to feel hardened or be upset or be mad at them. But like to me, I'd rather just say, what's the lesson to be learned? Like, why didn't it work?
Yeah.
And find even if it's a simplistic solution, we're not on that. We don't see this. We don't have the same type of energy. We don't this, we don't that. Just acknowledging it because I think sometimes when you're in that growth phase, at least how I felt is like when you're growing, it's so lonely. I think it's the
Yeah.
loneliest I've ever been is when I'm in this exponential growth.
For sure.
And I think that's a place that, people don't want to ever be too.
Right.
But and it's easy to blame yourself. Like when things don't work out, I know it's because the purpose for them to be in my life was no longer serving me.
Yeah.
What I don't make questions as to why they are the way that they are. But before, if we took the shreds moments and all those other things, that hardened me.
Yeah.
That made me not want to trust anyone and always give that room of potential to be able to escape, to do things that were gonna make me look a certain way, but that all I needed was that little bit, but it was because of those experiences. That's why I said, like, at some point, we have to be able to look at those mistakes that are happening and say, like, "How can I be better?"
This one taught me that. This was like the last straw for me of repeating my own patterns. And I feel like everyone has like three kind of great loves in their life. And two of them are teachers. Sometimes all three of them are teachers. But like you have those really grand experiences that are formative that help develop you into the person you're going to be moving forward. And this last one was like the final straw because I would say I definitely had faults in my other relationships for sure, like my marriage, I know I was a nagging bitch because I wasn't happy and I just should have never married that guy and he should have never married me. You know, the first one, we were just so young and I was so busy and I was really focused on my career. And I just think that that relationship never would have got to the maturity level it needed to based on how young we were. This one, I was in a great emotional place. I was, hustling financially, but I had a lot of love to give and he had a lot of love to give and we were great emotionally. But like I said, with his confidence, sexually and just within himself, that's what ruined our relationship, what actually led him to cheat. So there was one day I was working at a bar while I was in grad school because it was the only thing that made enough money to be worth my time. And I was supposed to get off around, like, 10, like, I wasn't closing that night, and he was out with his friends at their boat dock, which is somewhere during the summer in Ohio. We frequently went out there. His dad had a boat, and we would hang out on the boat and get drunk and whatever, like 20-some-year-old kids do. And I was, like, texting him because I was about to get off work, like, "All right, are you still there?" Like, whatever, he stopped answering. And I was like, "That's weird, we had plans. He is there. I'm supposed to go meet him there. I don't know what's going on." I get off work, called him a bunch of times, just not answering. And that was really unusual for him. So I'm like, "You know what? I'm just gonna go home." He comes home at like 2:30 in the morning, comes in bed, fucks me, goes to sleep. I'm like, okay, this is cool. I wake up really early in the morning. I had grocery shopping to do because I was on a schedule because I had work and school and grad school was tough. So I couldn't really deviate. So 8 o'clock in the morning, I needed to go grocery shopping. This is woman's intuition. It's real. I leave. I'm like a mile down the road, and there is a voice in my head that is so loud I could not ignore it. It was like, turn around, and go look at his phone. It's in his car in the center console. And I was like, okay. So I turned around, I went back. His car was unlocked. His phone was in the center console off. I turned it on. Oh, he had told me when he got home that his phone had died. I turned it on. It wasn't dead. It was on. And a bunch of texts come up from some girl that he was hanging out with. So he had brought a girl to the boat docks with his best friend and his best friend's girlfriend. And I was like it was like so many layers of betrayal had hit me all at the same time that I don't really know what he did with this chick while he was there, but like his best friend and his girlfriend know me. They know I was supposed to be there and they didn't call him out. Like they just let this happen. Like I was like, okay, now I lost these friends too. So I went right upstairs and I woke him up and I was like, "What the fuck?" And he had no excuse, nothing, he could say. And I was like, "I'm calling this girl right now in front of you." So I called her and she answered the phone like, "Oh my God, hi cutie," or something. And I was just like, "This is actually Christopher's girlfriend and we need to talk. And I need to know what you did and blah, blah, blah." And she said they just made out, but I think that there was more that
But
had
at that
happened.
point, does it even really matter?
No. And I broke up with him, and it was, like, no contact for, like, 3 months, and then he made me a mixtape and it melted my heart. And I allowed him back in my life because I really felt like he was sorry. And he admitted to me like why he did it. He felt like I was so independent. I had so much going for it. It was a confidence thing. Like I am so confident in who I am and what I was doing and where I was going with life. Because at this point, I also decided that I was moving out west once I graduated. And I told him that when we started dating, like if you're dating me, this is my life plan. Like you're either coming in or jumping off and you could stay on this ride for as long as you want, but this is what I'm doing. Because after I got divorced, I was like, I'm not changing my life for any man. Like, this is what I'm doing. So he was all on board he wanted to move with me. He wanted to be a part of this life. And then he felt like he didn't really have his shit together. Like he really didn't have his job set up. He had graduated college and was a little aimless. So this was his way, he told me, of reclaiming some of his masculine energy by getting with this woman, which to me is like bullshit, but at least you're trying to take some kind of
Oh,
accountability.
was it to say I'm gonna keep doing it or that's it?
Well, so he made me the next day, he apologized, whatever. I brought him back in my life. And then there was a second time where woman's intuition kick in. I'm not like a phone checker. Like,
And which guy is this?
this is still the same guy.
Br-
Chris. This is
So a third
Chris
one.
number 2. Yeah, this is guy number 3 that cheated on me.
Hey, so but when you're getting cheated on the whole time, you're not asking yourself like, what could I be doing different that would continue to prevent this from
It
happening?
should never be my fault.
But you're obviously doing something that's allowing them to feel that they're confident enough to do it.
Well, it's not like, okay, so guy 1, we ended our relationship, and then I didn't know that he was kind of having an affair behind my back. Guy 2, I moved out, then he cheated after. Like, right, we're still married. It was 2 days after I'd left. And then this guy just had a moment of opportunity, but did it because he felt like he was inferior and needed to feel masculine. So I took him back. We were together for maybe like a month or two. And one day he was in the shower at my apartment, and my intuition kicked in and was like, check his phone. And he's getting text messages from one of the football coaches from our high school who he worked with for some of the stuff he did on the side. And I open it and I look at it and I was like, this is not the coach. He had saved her name
Of course.
under the coach's name. So then he got out of the shower and I was like, you can get the fuck out and never come again. And that was like the moment that really changed me, because I did let it happen again. That in that scenario, I like let him back and opened my heart again. And I was just like, I just need to be with someone who the level of communication and trust that we have is so open and honest that this scenario will never happen again. And I'm just going to be completely single until I find that person to do that.
Hey, now, if you feel like, would you feel like if these people were honest from the beginning about their needs when it was happening or about to happen, that you would have said yes?
At the time, probably not. Well, I think the first guy cheated because he had like kinks. He wasn't really like,
But what I'm saying is like, how do you feel about it if he was to come to you and just tell you that that's what he needed? What would you have said?
at the time, I wouldn't have been emotionally or
Ready for that.
socially open to that.
And again, that's why a lot of these guys do it too. It's like they're just they know that if they confront you about it and say those things, you're gonna say no.
Right.
So then what?
So I broke up with him. I moved out west. I started my life. And then 2 years later, I met Steven. Now, our relationship dynamic was very different. And as I mentioned in a previous episode, Steven cheated on every single woman he's ever been with, except for me. He actually was in a relationship when he met me. And our dynamic, we had an open relationship, but it was open for me. Steven had a hot wife kink. If you don't know what that is, it's basically where
But did it never make you feel some type of way now that you're venturing like to the opposite of like how you felt about the other side?
it wasn't like he was like, go cheat on me. It was like, it was something that we did mutually. Well, let me explain what hot wifing is. Hot wife is like where you think your wife is really hot and you want to see her have sex with other people, or you want to see her flirt with other people. It started as a fantasy in the bedroom where we would just like talk about it, and he would just get really worked up while we were having sex, and he would just describe his fantasies. And then we would watch hot wife porn together. And then eventually one day he was like, I want you, would you be okay? Like, I really want you to text somebody and flirt with them. And then I want you to read the messages to me while I eat you out. And I was like, this sounds fun. Okay. It wasn't my thing, and I wouldn't have wanted to do it stand alone. But because it turned my partner on and he expressed to me that this was his kink and this was his fantasy, I wanted to make his fantasies a reality because I loved him.
But in those moments, what was your first thought? Like you were into it or no?
Yeah. Yeah.
Was that the first time you had this kink desire?
I didn't have the
No,
kink
for you,
desire.
but you had a desire to do it.
I just wanted to, like, be of service, like, help my husband. Like, I think it's hot when someone fulfills their fantasy. Like, I have fantasies that I want fulfilled, and I would love for someone who would want to help me fulfill those. And, like, that's how I felt about my husband. Like, I want to be this person for you that can fulfill the things that you're looking for. And we progressed and we took that in other ways that I'm not going to describe, but it was cool. And then there was times where when he was feeling really asexual, he was like, I don't want to be exploring this right now. Like, this isn't something that I'm into right now. And I'd be like, okay. So it was very driven on his emotional basis. But because we had that open connection where he could talk about anything, and he told me, he's like, I don't want the relationship to be open for me. I don't want to have sex with anybody else. There's literally not another woman in the world that could fulfill me the way that you do. I'm fine. And I was like, okay, because I asked him, like, is there anything that else that you feel like you need? And because my mindset started to change a little bit with Steven, the emotional maturity for sure, because we were 27 when I got together, and then, going into our 30s, like, I just realized that there's a lot of non-traditional relationship styles that we don't necessarily have to adhere to. And if he wanted other things, or if he, wanted to have a threesome or something, like, I would be open to that idea. And I think we actually did propose that idea once to my best friend, and I'm glad we didn't do it. Lindsay, she was like, "I got airplane pussy. I don't want to do it."
But like even allowing all these other intangibles to come into it, like before you were monogamous, so why him? Did that change?
Just because we were that open with each other. We told each other everything. And
Just because you were open.
there was nothing that we shielded from each other, including
Was there anything you said no to then?
no, there was never like a boundary that got pushed up against. Yeah. But I would have if we did. But when you share something so openly with someone, I feel like there's no loss for words, there's no loss for communication, where I didn't feel like I needed to hide any part of me and he needed to hide any part of him, and that's what made it great, and that's why I did feel comfortable to do, the hot wife thing when we engaged in it, whether it was just talk in the bedroom or actually, doing activities, and then also stopping when he didn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I
And
mean, the transparency is huge.
yeah,
If you can be honest with yourself from the get-go, I think a lot of people that might look at things in a certain light, you might change their perspective of how they view it because of your
yeah,
openness. Because there is a taboo, right? Like I've always said, like you could be in whatever type of relationship you want to be in, monogamous, non-monogamous, all those things. Like whatever you and your partner agree on mutually, as crazy dynamic it is as it is, that works if you're happy, right?
right,
I mean, a lot of people live this monogamous life, but they cheat every weekend.
right. And
So what's the point?
I told Steven at one point, like, when he really wasn't wanting to have sex, that I need more, and he's like, "If you wanna go get more, you can go get more," but I didn't want to because that just didn't feel right, but I at least communicated my
Correct.
needs, and it did, like, push him to try to be more sexual even when he wasn't feeling like it. But I would say at this point, like, I've been in a lot of situations where I'm in an ethical non-monogamy thing with, like, a married man or whatever, but, like, I talk to the wife first. Like, I wanna make sure that this is allowed, this is okay, and I love it. It's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what are you getting fulfilled out of it too? Because I think there's also the emptiness that could potentially come from those type of desires, right? Like with cheating, you go and do it for at the end to just feel nothing, right? So how do you, is it because you're doing it with your person or there's a connection there that it doesn't feel the same, that same way?
Right now, I'm not looking for an emotional
Well, I'm saying
connection.
like through your past, like your past relationships, like when it was happening,
Like with Steven,
correct?
it was more for Steven, not for the other person.
Yeah.
So it never made me feel empty, it made me feel really full,
Gotcha.
literally and figuratively. You know what I'm saying? So, I've
Yeah, I
talked
mean, but those are a lot of things too that I think like some people relate to it and some don't, right? But the conversation being had, you both agreed to whatever those things were,
yeah.
right? Because I can't relate to any of that. Like,
I think we should have a whole episode about ethical non-monogamy and get into that. So I've talked about myself quite enough. And I think ethical non-monogamy we should put in its own capsule for its own episode because we both have a lot to say there. But I want to know about Mr. Devin.
so obviously we just came off the episode with shreds and all the things that I had to endure at a young age and go through the things that I did. So as I pivot into like the next phase, it's more learning for me. And I never really get into a relationship that this is kind of funny because I'm gonna say it, but I ended up meeting my ex fiance on there on Bumble.
Okay.
Uh-huh. And at that time, like I mean, it was like brand new.
What year was this?
This was like maybe say like the beginning of 2018, so I was
Okay.
28. Yeah, we just hit it off, and I feel like in that relationship, like, I mean, more than anyone, well, like when you find out this is your person, like you'll go all in, you'll do whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, you said like even in the other relationships, you treated it like you'll do whatever it takes type of thing. And so I think when you connect with someone that way, it's like an unsaid thing, right? You can't explain it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, that's very much how my relationship was, and it was very odd to me because I felt like a little kid in a lot of the moments, and I hadn't felt that way since I was so young. So that's also a frightening feeling to be subconsciously, whether I'm addressing it or not. I think that was one of my big things, like from traumatic things that I was younger to now, is like I still dealt with everything that I dealt with. I just the things that were bringing me down, they were doing it quietly.
Yeah.
So when I'm in this dynamic and everything's flowing the way that it's supposed to, hitting it off. Didn't you say you and Steven got engaged like with him how many months?
6 months.
So 6 months. So like, we meet, and I remember she said like, "Oh, I just got on here. Here's my number," and we just hit it off in the very beginning, and it was just off to the races, like feeling things that I just never felt before. And so, like you said, when you know type of situation, and we were 5 months.
Okay.
And so 5 months in, like, we're already living together, like, I had her move from where she was to my place, like, everything just lined exactly where it needed to be. And by the, 5th month, like, I think it just passed not too long ago, like, May 5th. Yeah, we got engaged. At that time, we were, like, connected in every aspect, and so we got engaged on top of Mammoth.
Yeah, you showed me
It
the
all
video.
it goes
Yeah.
back to, like, I did anything for this girl. I don't
Yeah.
know why. I remember my roommates at the time were making jokes to me because the first 4 times we hung out, we didn't do anything. Just kissed, that was it. Like, they're like, "You're gonna get friend zoned," and we always made a joke because she always thought that that's how it was in the beginning. But I think I was impressed for those things because in those moments, I knew that it was forever for me, and that mindset. So why am I gonna rush it? But then you overanalyze it too, right? So, like I said, off to the races, we get engaged. Like, I told my mom this is gonna happen. And I was like, "Are you sure about this?" Like, she knows how I am, and all my past relationships didn't end well for specific reasons, got bored. I think that was one of my big things, right? You get bored.
Yeah.
And I don't think we talked about that either, too. Like, you just something about the relationships
It's
not
stale.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're also talking this in the nature of like we're 20 in our 20s. So,
Yeah.
like, how much of life do we really know?
Right.
That's why I've said sometimes, like, if I could go back and reassess my younger years, like 20 to 30, I just wouldn't have been in any serious relationships.
But it's like you can't.
It's part of the game,
Yeah.
but I don't know. Yeah,
You learn.
I guess you're right.
Yeah.
Like, everything happens for a reason. But if I was going back to maybe lessen and be more out there to explore,
Yeah.
the different dynamics. So, at that time period too, I was also finding myself again from a hardship, right?
Yeah.
And now I'm letting someone back into my life that's gonna get more of me than anyone's got. So I mean, I think because of my track history with my dad in my life and not being there when I was younger and stuff like that, I always left that little bit of openness where it allowed that door to stay open so I could get out if I needed to. So um I thought, this is the next phase of my life. Like, I went through a hardship with shreds, like, I've rebuilt myself. Now I'm in this phase of like, maybe it's time I'm gonna get married. Like, I'm gonna have a family. Like, that's the next move. So, beginning of 2018. So I'm 28. All right. It's like the perfect time, I
Yeah.
think, at that point. And so I just decided like we're gonna move. Like, I needed new scenery. I wanted to get away from where, we talked about OC being the place for shreds. Like, okay, this is the perfect time to just relocate, like somewhere I can start brand new. And so I'd been to Vegas a couple times. And so I just made the decision to move here. Like, as an entrepreneur, someone that works for themselves, I mean, I could work anywhere,
Right.
right? I can live anywhere. And at the time, her job was a hairstylist.
She
Now,
could go anywhere.
and well, yes, but then at the same time, you're taking clients, right? So if you lived or, you built your clientele in a specific area and then we move, that
Yeah,
means
you gotta start
you got to
over.
start over.
Yeah.
So that was one of the big risks. But, again, I was doing everything for this girl. I was paying for everything. And so we'll figure it out. Like, that's just kind of what my mindset was. So, we moved to Vegas, packed everything. I think at that time we discussed like she's going to go to work every two weeks out of the month, or
To go back.
yeah, 1 week out of the month, stay at her sister's house. And so that's kind of what the dynamic was. And, now we're a year in and we're moving to Vegas, and I'm just like, dude, this is a fresh start. I'm engaged. Like, this is everything I can ask
You
for.
guys
Like,
got your own place together. Yeah.
right away, she lived with me from like, I mean, I think 2 months. She just signed her lease. She broke it. You're moving in with me. Like, everything was just fast.
Yeah.
I mean, you relate to that, I think. So, yeah, it was just everything was flowing the way it was supposed to. We moved to Vegas, and I don't remember, where in our relationship, and that's why I say like, where things failed. It's hard to pinpoint certain things, but I think that going through what I went through, because I always, this is a place of vulnerability because a lot of people would shy away from the mistake that's being made. It
Yeah.
just don't tell people.
Yeah.
And I think when things happen, I was growing, and when I've fully grown, I tell my story. I think that's why the podcast is big for me too, is just being transparent. Like, we make mistakes and that's part of life, but are you growing from it?
Yeah.
And so, through trials and tribulations of, post going to therapy and relearning myself, I love to give the story of like, I was the one that cheated, and I don't remember when it started, and it took me having to go back to the dark deeps of my childhood to understand why I was being the way that I was being. But when I reflect on, certain things, that's why we talked about why do people cheat, and I remember when I was in that scenario when it was first starting to happen, um, it it was one of those situations where I wasn't thinking about the repercussions of the other person. I was just solely thinking about me selfishly.
Yeah.
Right. And it's sometimes when you grow, at least how I felt, like because of how I've grown now and who I was then, it's really hard for me to go back to those parts of me that don't exist
You don't
anymore.
relate to that person.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, I can only, and they say girls think critically, guys think logically. And so for me, I only look from a logical perspective. So when I look at the dynamics of my relationship and why it failed is because I didn't communicate.
Yeah.
Like, I was having these desires to whether a spark was missed, whether, a year into our relationship and she's still weighing heavy on me, didn't really progress into finding her identity. And remember, I told you I get bored easy. So I
Yeah.
think it was, and then also, random people that spark your interest, your male, you feel some type of way and you want to entertain it.
Right.
I think a lot of the times when those things were happening too, it was just to get the arouse that somebody would fuck me.
Yeah.
As crazy as
The
that sounds.
excitement.
Yeah,
The
and
thrill.
it would end there, and then also, yeah, the thrill, like of just knowing that like you could be sneaky. There's some weird twisted thing that's aligned to that. So, I think one of the big things when it was happening, like I think we've reflected, but it kept happening because in those scenarios, when she did find out, she would forgive me.
Yeah.
And because I was in a place of not someone that was healed from traumatic things plus what I went through, she was just empowering me, And I remember she would sit there and say, like, "Why are you doing what you're doing?" I didn't have an answer, and I think that pissed her off more. I mean, even to this day, because I don't think the way that I used to, I still don't have an answer deep down of why I was doing what I was doing, other than
Do you think it was a cure to the boredom?
the only thing that makes sense is, okay, if I'm paying for everything, okay, and you're not progressing in my eyes, and I'm not telling you either, so that could be something that could be my fault
You're
too.
keeping it and getting resentful.
Yeah, and but I'm not thinking about these things. They're just probably building up
Yeah.
on their own. So I could muster all these ideas of like how I'm doing all these things, and you're not progressing, and my friends are your friends, and it just seems like weights on me.
Yeah.
So when I go do what I do, it's I'm doing what I'm doing,
Yeah.
and so again, just the excitement aspect of things, because everyone knows they just play like they don't,
Yeah.
and so I think I've said too, like when you're in relationships, you're more like an item for people to want to go after for
Which is
the same type of counter thrill that you get in cheating.
it's crazy. Yeah. But it's true that it's crazy.
Yeah, so one of the big thing was always like, why are you doing what you're doing? And it was crazy because in those moments, I do remember I don't know why I was doing what I was doing.
Yeah.
And a lot of this, which is why I'm so proud of where I am now and the transparency in which I live, because a lot of that stem when I was younger as a child, I lived in a very strict home.
Yeah.
And my stepdad was my father figure. He was a cop, and he inflicted very strict rules. And so I think the things that I had to endure there when my back was against the wall in relationships like that and I got caught, I lied.
Yeah.
And I would have commit to the motherfucking lie.
Die with the lie,
I am,
baby.
oh my God, like they could try to convince me that I'm lying. No, you are.
Yeah.
And that stemmed from a childhood that was very, when I feel like when you're raised by someone that's not your blood, they treat you different.
Yeah.
And so I was raised on a very strict thing. I had a 6-page contract before I got my license to sign. Thinking about it now, I'm like, that's illegal.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you
Pretty
mean?
crazy.
Yeah, like, and so I had to abide by those rules. And I remember there were so many times when I was younger where my options were lie and get away with it or tell the truth and I'm in trouble.
Right.
So as a kid, I'm gonna fucking lie.
For sure.
And so when I fast forward those things and I'm starting to realize that those very things were a lot of the definitive reasons why I couldn't do a lot of the things I wanted to do in the relationship was because I couldn't be honest with myself. I
Yeah.
needed to lie. Like I don't think there was any time that I admitted to any of them, even when it was clear as day.
Really?
Yeah, like, and looking back at this from a different perspective too, I can understand because if I was to diagnose like relationships that I've been in, that girl would have done anything for me,
Yeah.
and I think that's why she validated all the things that she did. But in that moment, I wasn't thinking like, oh, I'm having this girl in our house, in our bed, and I'm just doing what I want to do. How is that going to make her feel? That never crossed my mind.
So you never got caught like red-handed with another girl?
So I think the most, and I think the craziest story that would align with that is just like you've kind of mentioned on the contrary to it, like when a girl feels some type of way, she's going to investigate like
Yeah.
an FBI agent.
Yeah.
And I also feel like from the other side of making the mistakes, like you get caught up because you start to like be lackadaisical about the excessiveness. That was how I was. Like I was just making it clear because I was like when you know you're doing something wrong, you start to slip up
Yeah.
and you're not your
To
normal
get
self.
used to it, right?
Yeah, and then if you're taking on more than you can chew, there's a lot more opportunity to make mistakes.
Right.
So I remember one time, it's just crazy because when I think of it now and I'm about to tell the story in my head, I'm like, I did not like, I didn't think about how I was making that person feel
Yeah.
because I didn't care. I was just fulfilling my own need. But I think the craziest one was, she would go for 2 weeks to go home, like,
Yeah.
and do the hair thing. And that's when I would do it. I mean, that was the perfect opportunity. So I don't remember. I think 2 times I had this girl fly separately, and one of the times she came, she stayed for a couple days. Like I said, as I assess it now from a clear head, I'm like, "What the fuck was I doing? That doesn't even make sense."
Now, did the girl that you brought over know that you
Yes.
okay, and
They
she was
always
cool
do.
with it?
They always do.
You tell them up front?
I think back in then, it was just like, I don't need to talk about it.
Okay.
And I don't think a lot of girls ask
They
questions.
just don't ask, don't tell?
No.
Okay.
And so, yeah, so she flew in a couple days and stayed in the whole 9, and, like, I think we did it twice. I think there was even one time where I, like, again, like, just committing to a fucking lie, like, I went to some extremes. I think there was one time I was with the company and I said, "I need to fly here to do something," and it was not to do that at all.
It was to have
It was
sex
to
with
follow.
someone? Damn.
Yeah, and I know she knew, but as I look back at it now, like, what the fuck do you think I was doing?
Right.
But I think when you get so invested in what you're doing, the lies, and then someone's continually giving you chances, you're empowering them.
There's, like, no accountability for what you're doing.
And
It's
she was, I mean, I even said this, like, you're weak. She was very weak. And I exploited every ounce of it. Now, from my perspective, now I see it that way. But then I was just doing it subconsciously.
yeah.
Like when you're in a bad state and you can't take accountability for things and you're lying and you're doing all these things to protect yourself, you're really just hurting everyone around you. And I think that's what I was doing.
Do you feel bad about it now?
I've said to people, like, when I tell this, because, like I said, it puts you in a vulnerable state. No one wants to admit to a cheat, because it makes people feel some type of way. But I also can talk about it because of where it led me to. So I've said if I had to go through this same thing again and hurt her, I would selfishly do it
Yeah.
because I am who I am today. Because again, like we talked about earlier, like you're dealt with traumas, it's your job to overcome them. So at the same angle, she could look at that and say, "That changed me for the better, and I'm a better person because of it now."
Yeah.
So I kind of look at it from that perspective. If this rock bottom of a moment for me, like, happened to me, like, if this is the ultimate time for me to make change, but it was something of this caliber, right? I think that's another thing too, is when you don't wanna change, you're gonna keep being in that space until you have that one impactful moment where it just hits you in the face.
So she never caught you the entire time? Never text, never nothing?
Yeah, but see, like, little caught ups, like, I remember there was just, like, a history of me searching, like, flights, and she knew, like,
Mm.
but she just always turned a naked eye to me and just allowed it, I mean, just over and over, and it was just empowering me over and over. And so that's why I'm saying, like, from this perspective now, like, when I see myself in those motions, I would say to myself, "Why was I such a coward that I couldn't sit her down and say, 'Yo, I'm having these desires.
Yeah.
How do we fix this?'"
Were you sexually satisfied
Right.
with her?
So that's a big thing too, like, I think, and I've said this too, like, every time it happened, she thought I was trying to find better. So she
Mm.
thought I was, like, in that mindset, and
Like
for me, it's just
protecting your
fulfilling.
beauty?
I think it was just fulfilling a void. I also think that I didn't experiment in a sexual way as much by that time, so my opinions might have been jaded in a certain light, so I don't think I ever looked at, like, wanting to fuck her the same way I wanted to, like you would for just a sporadic one.
Mm.
When you're in love with someone, it's just a little different. And I just never saw her that way. And I wasn't sexually experienced enough to know to push those boundaries. Cause how do I know? I could think right now and say, like, she wouldn't, but, like, I would have just sat her down and said, "Hey, I'm having these desires. Can we fix it?" And if the answer is no, then I would be like, then we need to go our separate ways.
Yeah.
It sounds so, like, simplistic now because that's what I would do. But that's how I live my life now.
Did you ever think to yourself at that time, like, "I need to talk to her about this," or that never crossed your mind?
I think because we addressed it, it was good, and then it would happen. Like you had another experiences, like couple months, like even to piggyback the worst experience, right? To finish on that story, like once she left, whether I think the girl did it on purpose, she left her plane ticket in the trash.
At your house.
Yeah, like in there, like
So she found
yeah,
it.
so that was one where she found it. Yeah, and but even in those moments, like I never fully committed to yes. I
Yeah.
still it was like I tried to because one of the big things for me in the relationship with her was I was a sex addict and I was narcissistic. And I think when I've assessed those things and I've gone to therapy myself, because it was about a year after we split. Because I remember when we moved here, everything was fine. Um, but then COVID also hit.
Yeah.
So we're having these off and on moments. And the only time we fought was because of what I was doing. That's it.
Yeah.
There was no other reason. That's why I say if I look back at it now, it was the perfect person for me because we never had any issues. But does this thing hamper the relationship, like as far as the transparency? But like so looking back at it, it's just like, yeah, there's so much more clarity to see things. But I think a lot of it weighed on the fact that because I knew she was letting me get away with things, I just pushed the button.
Is that why you guys broke up? Was from her cheating?
So, once, we were going through COVID, we're having our ups and downs. Now COVID hit and every day we're together. So how do you make a mistake? So everything's great.
Right.
And then I think COVID opened back up and it was like fucking feeding me to the wolves,
Yeah.
And so again, I can't pinpoint like why I was doing those things other than it was filling a void. I was too cowardly enough to sit down and talk about it.
Yeah.
And she was empowering me, all those things. Like,
I think you saying she's empowering you is a little bit of displacing the
no,
accountability.
I take account of, I'm saying that's
There
what
was no consequence, rather.
Okay, yeah, but I'm saying empowering me and like in those moments, I'm like, yeah, see, she'll never leave me.
Right. So yeah, I guess. Yeah.
I'm not saying what she was doing was it was wrong for me to take advantage of it.
Yeah.
And I was.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying like when she was saying I was narcissistic, I just think that I had narcissistic tendencies and I knew how to exploit her.
Yeah.
I mean, if it's your person, you know them better than they know themselves.
So what led you guys to break up
So,
ultimately?
when, COVID hit, like, Fit Club opened again and it was just like newness and I think I fucked someone at the gym. And
Damn.
I
That you guys both went to.
Yeah, and, and again, creating barriers that didn't make sense, like, I'm just selfishly thinking for myself, doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And the me now, I would say, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah.
But in those moments, even when it was happening, I was like, "Well, if she wants to leave, she'll leave." I think there was another moment, like, when it was like, finally, I think that was it, like, she'd had enough. I remember, they went out for, like, Halloween or something, and I was like, "Oh, I don't feel that, I'm not going out." And then I went and hung out with someone else.
Damn.
Yeah, I was just carelessly doing dumb shit.
Now, did you think so you guys were engaged to be married. Did
Mhm.
you tell yourself or have this discussion with yourself that once you guys got married, you were gonna stop, or you didn't even think that far?
No. But I also in those moments, I wasn't doing what I was doing thinking that I was ever gonna leave her. I
No.
was just filling a void and coming right back.
So you didn't even think so you when you said no, you mean no, you didn't even think about it? Or no, you
About what?
if you were gonna continue to cheat once you guys got married? Because a lot of people think marriage changes things and it doesn't.
I don't I think we were doing a lot of things that we wanted to do that we never got to that next phase of, like, that kinda conversation, but also on top of that, I think that she was never good at confrontation, so she's always say I would, like, scare her.
Yeah,
So, I don't think in those moments when I was doing what I was doing, she was ever feeling comfortable enough to speak to me.
yeah,
And just like you said, like, you stay longer than you should because you really care about that person, so you make excuses for them, which is why, when inevitably the last thing happened where I stayed like that and she left me, I think a couple months later it set in like, "Damn, she fucking left me," and then all the realization comes in of, like, how silly that was, but I still had more to get out of my system, so, like, the next year, I was just fucking around.
did you feel any type of way, like, better within yourself of like, "Oh, I'm unattached and I'm doing what I want," or were you even at a point where you could have that reflection?
I don't think I was at that point yet.
Yeah,
Don't they say, like, after 6 months, you, like, feel some type of way?
I don't know.
I think I had the waves in the beginning of like, damn, she really left me. Like, no, she'll come back. And she stuck her guns. And, I can say I'm proud of her for that
So
because
she moved back home?
no, she still lives here.
Okay.
But I'm proud of her for moving forward
Yeah,
because if she would have regressed back, it wouldn't have been healthy for me or her.
yeah,
So I respect the hell out of that. Maybe didn't understand at the moment and I didn't see the value of what I was losing, but that's why I said I'm thankful for everything that's happened to me.
yeah,
The shreds days, going into this traumatic phase, like it also, in our relationship too, which is why I used to say this, and I'm big on why, everyone to each their own on how they want to heal from their traumas and grow. But I used to be one of those people where I would say, like, I don't need to see a therapist. I don't need a therapist to tell me how to live my life. My life's perfect. I had that mentality.
Yeah.
So there was times in our relationship where she wanted to go there, and I went one time, but it was to appease her, not to be there
Not
because
for
I
you.
wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And I remember it went all my way. It got to a place where it was so toxic that she wanted my phone for everything.
Mm.
And so even on something like that, like, we weren't setting ourselves for success moving forward by having these little things. Cause I remember we went to therapy and I told him that. He's like, yeah, you shouldn't have that. So he was also just putting in my fucking head that you're crazy,
Yeah.
and then I'm gonna throw it on you even more because I'm taking advantage of you. So like the therapy was never something that made sense to me. But when I had some of those dark moments that trailed, that's why I'm so open about this story because I put in the work that was required and I went to see a therapist. And I remember the first time I went to see a therapist, he was asking me some questions, and there was this question that he asked me, and I almost lied. And I don't remember what he said to me, but I remember in that moment, I've already lost my fiance. I'm not fulfilled in doing these sexual desires that lead to nothing. So why am I here if I'm gonna lie?
Right.
And I almost lied. And then I did it. And it was just crazy because after that day, I never lied again. I don't lie anymore at all. But it was in that moment of like realization that I'm doing this for me.
Yeah.
And
You'd be lying to yourself.
yeah, I mean, I was so toxic in my relationship that I could write people a heartfelt text and feel nothing,
Yeah.
but I wrote it for whatever it needed to. Now with the growth that I have, like, I find myself crying for things that don't even make sense, but I never ask, why am I crying? I embrace it because I know I'm supposed to feel the things that I'm feeling, even if in that moment I don't have a reason for it. Because there was a lot of times throughout the shreds moments and even in those dark places where I was so shunned away from any type of feelings. Like, who can write a heartfelt text and feel nothing? A
Yeah.
dark, dark person,
Yeah.
which makes sense why I was doing all the dark things.
I mean, that's narcissistic tendencies. It doesn't mean you're a narcissist.
But I think it's easy to say someone is that when you're dealing with it
For sure.
and make it your life goal that that's what that person is. But I will say, when I went to the therapist and I told him those two things that I was being told I was, the first thing out of his mouth was, "You're neither."
Yeah.
And then I came to the realization about tendencies. We all have it. And at the end of the day, if our back's against the wall, we're going to say and do things to benefit us. And if we know that person more than anyone else does, we could probably manipulate as much as we want. You could sit here and do that all day if you really wanted to,
Yeah.
but when you're not in that space, you don't think to do that.
Right.
But I was in that space because even if I reflect now, I wasn't thinking about that I was being narcissistic or I was taking advantage of her because I was just doing it.
You were just self-fulfilling yourself. You were in a solo ship, not a relationship, and not really considering that other person and that they have value and that their needs are a part of that relationship. How long were you in therapy?
I was like a full year,
Okay.
but it was big for me to go there and actually solve problems.
Yeah.
And I remember the first like 3 times I was there, he made me cry every single time.
Yeah.
And it was insane. Like, who the fuck is this dude? Like, how is he making me cry? And I just felt like I was going with purpose and it was changing me day by day by
Yeah.
day. I mean, I'm still learning in regular life, but it's like coming to that realization of like seeing how much therapy changed my outlook to things. And what's kind of crazy, as I mentioned too, with this is like me and my ex never got closure. She made a podcast, and I know a lot of it was derived around being a victim of some of it. And so I think for me, a lot of the times I felt some type of way because I've lived my life where there's 2 sides to things, and, if I don't say anything, I don't talk about my experiences, I'm always the one side.
Mm.
And so, when I grew from this, I think a lot of it is just taking acknowledgement for things and realizing I made a lot of mistakes.
Yeah.
And it's a rewarding feeling to be able to sit here and take accountability for those, know where I made mistakes and how I can grow. And I think that's something that, I pride myself on when I tell the story because there's a lot of people that make this mistake and then they're shunned upon, right? And I think we're all allowed to make mistakes. How
100%.
much are you making them?
Right.
Like, if you make one and then you make another mistake and it's the same thing, you're obviously not learning,
Right.
right? And so it took something that traumatic for me and some time after, to put in the work. So, now I say like seeing a therapist was the best thing that I could have possibly done for myself. It really opened my eyes to things. And, as it trickled into like what I do for work now, like, and in the OnlyFans space, and like, I always ask myself, like, my ex thought I was a sex addict, so does she really think I'm one? And we've had this conversation, but like you have more sexual desires. If we were to play the same game, your numbers would be a lot
Oh,
higher.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be insane.
I want sex way more than you want sex, and it's your job.
Yeah, so I think, getting in this space because there's, I think we can talk about this more in other sides of it, but at the end of the day, it's a job,
Yeah,
and so yeah, it's a sexual thing, but the openness of how I work in this space and how I am now, the one thing that I've learned about being transparent and being honest is it doesn't attract less, it attracts more.
for sure.
And there's so many people that are just like amazed by me because of my transparency and I put it out that way. And so people are just curious. And I think a lot of people live in these monogamous relationships, but they're getting cheated on every single day. And so, like we talked about, if I am transparently me, and let's say just for the workspace, I say, this is what I do. If you're not okay with it, this is where it ends. I'm okay with that.
Yeah,
No boundary is going to get crossed from there, even if it's the hottest person or the most compatible person I've ever met. Like, this is something that is a part of me right now, and if you aren't able to accept that, it's not gonna work. Not many people can say that.
that's why when I lead with an interaction, I lead with, "These are my desires, these are my wants, these are
Yes.
my boundaries." Once you truly know yourself and you've healed yourself and you've gone through that self-exploration process, you're not willing to compromise who you are to meet someone where they're at.
Like, like, here's the big thing, right? There's a lot of dudes that will be attracted to escorts or strippers or OnlyFans girls. And so by nature, they pursue them, right? And then they fall for them. They get in a relationship and they want to change everything about them,
Yeah,
right? And so for me, is I don't bark up a tree that I don't feel I belong in now. So for me, with the space I'm in, I know like if this person doesn't do this, we're probably not going to align. But a lot of people snoop up trees they don't belong and then they want to change somebody. And I think that's where, again, you're also already creating a toxic space. So there is something empowering to feel like you can transparently say exactly what's on your mind. Yeah.
yeah,
But to get there, it's hard. And I
sure.
think if you're not doing the internal work to get to that place, you end up living in denial. And then, like I said, when you grow and you get into that growth space, it becomes lonely because you don't want to surround yourself with people that don't think the way you do. I think we had this combo. Like, if you're around mediocre, frequencies, you're going to think that way.
Yeah,
And when you get into a space where you're, being empowered and it's your energy is being matched, like there's not a better feeling than that. And I think that's where we've always connected to is like, it doesn't matter about time, right? You can connect with somebody as quick as a day.
right.
But it's aligning your goals with that. And that's why I think when relationships fail or friendships fail, I just say to myself, no, it's just a redirect of where my journey is going and where theirs is.
Yeah.
Like what are the odds that we became friends? Like it's very just out of the blue. And then to have the diversity, but still have a lot of things in common and to come together. And I think that's why these conversations are fun to be had because we can have the open sea of the conversation and know like when people listen to us, like I mean, we're talking about shit like it's just a normal day.
And we've been friends for 4 months.
So I think that's the big lesson to be learned that I say to everyone is like just communication. And if you can't communicate and you can't be honest, like I don't want to have to be with somebody that I have to lie in order to keep them
Yeah.
because they're not meant for me.
What I've noticed when you're a healed person, you see other healed people differently. You can connect with them better. You guys have a match because you know you've done the work. And not that other people are less. It's just there's a difference in someone who's worked on themselves. And like I can see you for your authentic self because that's who you present. And you see me for my authentic self because that's who I present. And we are able to meet so much better in the middle because we are being our true selves. And it's like those people who go on different paths. Maybe they're not ready to face that, and that's fine. They have a different journey and maybe they haven't come there. Like since we've been friends, we've both let go of people in our lives because
Absolutely.
they're on different paths. And it's not my fault. It's not your fault. It's just it's not meant to be. But ultimately, I hope you're proud of yourself because you've done a lot of growth and you've changed a lot and you've faced these demons and taken responsibility for your actions. And so many people still don't do that. Even when they're faced with them, they still choose to turn and lie, and it's like, that moment where like, I almost lied, and that's lying to myself. Like,
Yeah.
why?
Yeah.
But I really hope you're proud of yourself.
No, I'm definitely am because it does take, it's like it's easy to acknowledge the principles, but it's hard to get there.
Yeah.
Be transparent. So I definitely feel some type of way. That's why, talking about this stuff and acknowledging when mistakes are made, if you can, take accountability, learn from it and grow, then you're someone that inspiring a lot of people out there. Like, hey, if you make a mistake, you still have the opportunity to fix it,
Yeah. There's still
so
time. With that being said, I think we have done a great job talking about
We
cheating
did.
today.
And I feel like we could probably will have more of this.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well, we're gonna talk next about OnlyFans.
we are.
Yeah, we got a lot to say there. I have a lot to say there. You have a lot to
Yeah,
say
and
there.
I'm kind of curious too because even the conversations to be had and like whatnot. Like I just feel like there's the normalness in the conversations we have. I always now wonder like what do I say normal, but what do normal people think when they listen?
I don't know. Give
We'll
us some
find out.
comments. Give us some feedback. What do you think about what we're talking, what we're laying down? Are you
Yeah,
picking it up? How's the dynamic?
yeah, we appreciate that. So
Tell us on our socials, which are our Instagram is Tell No Lies Podcast, our YouTube is Tell No Lies Podcast, or is it Tell No Lies Pod? I
to
get
the Lights podcast.
Tell No Lies
That's the only
Podcast.
one that's
They're
not
both.
asked.
Okay. Our website, tellnoliespod.com. You can find Devin at Devin Physique. You can find Ashley at Ashley Contorno. That is all for today,
That
folks.
is all.
Thank you.
See you next time. Peace, guys.